If I asked you what really shaped your morning routine today, you might say, oh, technology, or maybe just, needing coffee.
Yeah.
But when you dig into it and look at the sources we have today, a huge part of the answer is actually advertising.
Mm.
It hasn't just sold you stuff. It's fundamentally engineered your habits.
Mm.
Like maybe you woke up to a Big Ben clock, shaved with a Gillette, had some Kellogg's cereal, maybe sweetened with Domino sugar.
Those are all giants, brands that really figured out mass communication right at the start of the 20th century. And today we're diving deep into those foundations of modern persuasion. We're looking at Roy S. Durstine's 1920 book, Making Advertisements and Making Them Pay.
Okay.
And what's really striking is how fast these early players realized they weren't just, printing flyers, they were doing some serious psychological engineering.
Right. So our mission today is basically to pull out those timeless persuasion principles, the stuff that still works because it's about human nature, not just fancy tech. And it all starts with this big realization that kicked off the industry. Replacing intimacy with immediacy.
Exactly. Advertising exists because the old way, word of mouth, is just too slow for a modern market. That's the core commercial insight.
Okay, let's unpack that. You mentioned the story of Mr. Brown, the pickle maker.
Right. Brown's partner was apparently a big believer in word of mouth. His argument was, if Mrs. Jones tells Mrs. Brown, she'll believe it because it's coming from a friend. Trust, right.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Brown agreed trust was key, but his response was basically, it takes too long. He figured waiting for neighborhood gossip to spread the word about his pickles meant he'd go broke first. He realized he could personally, through ads, tell maybe 2 million Mrs. Joneses and Mrs. Smiths about his pickles way faster than waiting for news to just leak out by itself.
So it was the inefficiency of word of mouth, the sheer slowness that drove professional advertising. It wasn't even about fancy persuasion yet, just speed and scale.
Right.
If you have 2 blamed Medi back fences, as the source puts it, you need a printing press.
And that need for speed demands clarity right away. Which brings us to the first principle of the craft they figured out, unity.
Unity.
Yeah. The idea that the picture, the text, the font, everything has to be seen as one single coherent thing before you even start designing or writing.
Like an early version of a brand style guide, the source uses this great analogy about Sir Christopher Wren rebuilding London after the Great Fire. Even though the city wasn't rebuilt exactly to his grand plan, the fact that he visualized it as a unit made the final result hang together. You can't have, your headline fighting your picture.
Exactly, and you have to achieve that unity in a space where you're fundamentally not welcome. I mean, let's face it, any ad is an interruption.
Right.
Durstine quotes Sir Arthur Quillercouch here, saying, the obligation of courtesy lies with the author, the advertiser, because you're the one interrupting the reader.
That's fascinating. It means the advertiser's ego, what they want to say, is kind of irrelevant. Your job is to put yourself in the reader's shoes, think about their convenience, and make the interruption worthwhile. It's about persuading, not just shouting.
And a big part of persuading is showing, not just telling. The rule for visuals back then was show the product on the job.
On the job.
Yeah, show it doing what it does, satisfying the need it's supposed to fill.
Okay, that sounds a lot like what we'd call content marketing today, right? Showing the utility.
Pretty much. Think about it. A picture of a truck tire just floating in space, boring. But a picture of that same tire crunching through mud or hauling a heavy load, suddenly it's interesting. It shows what it can do.
Or like furniture, don't just show a table in isolation.
Right. Show it in a whole room setting with the decor, the atmosphere. Let the customer instantly picture it in their own home, in their life.
And sometimes defining that action, that job, boils down to a really punchy slogan, like, see that hump for a hook and eye.
Exactly. That's not just catchy. It points directly to a specific feature, the thing that makes it work better. It's action-oriented.
Okay, so if the craft is about unity and action, what's next?
Next level up is pure psychology, atmosphere. Durstine says atmosphere is critical, maybe even more important in an ad than in face-to-face selling.
Why more important?
Because the ad has to create that whole feeling, that emotional stage, instantly. It doesn't have time for a slow build-up like a salesperson might.
And this is where it can get kind of manipulative, right? We need to talk about that Fifth Avenue scarf story.
Oh, absolutely. It's a perfect example of using atmosphere to basically pressure someone into buying through social anxiety.
So walk us through it.
Okay, imagine you walk into this really posh, sleek men's shop. You saw a scarf in the window, maybe $12. The salesman, perfectly dressed but totally aloof. They sort of treat you like you're just browsing, maybe wasting their time.
Okay, I can picture it.
And getting the scarf requires effort. They have to call Jenkins over to get it out of this high-up window display. It's a whole production.
Making you feel like you've caused trouble already.
Exactly. So you look at the scarf, and maybe objectively it's not even worth the $12. But then you look up, and the salesman is just standing there watching you, judging. Are you a real customer, someone with taste? Or just some looky-loo?
Yeah, the pressure's on.
And the atmosphere they've built, the effort, the implied status, their judgment, it just makes you feel small, cowardly, as the book says.
So you just cave.
You murmur, I'll take it.
Yeah.
You bought the relief from social awkwardness, not really the scarf. The atmosphere sold it. That feeling of needing to maintain face, it's classic status marketing, even back then.
Wow, that is cold. And this applied psychology wasn't just in shops, right? There's that other story, the one about the magazine salesman.
The walking stick. Yeah, that one's amazing. This salesman's results were poor.
Yeah.
His manager watched him, realized the approach lacked, well, gravitas. Something was missing.
So what did he do?
He went out, bought a dozen walking sticks, $4 each, which wasn't nothing back then, and told the salesman to use them.
Carry a walking stick.
Yeah. And orders went up immediately. The stick, plus decent clothes, and a brisk, busy walk. It created this impression. This guy's important, he's busy, he's probably got something worthwhile to say. Social proof, basically.
That's wild. But wasn't there a specific move, too?
Yes, that's the genius part. When the woman answered the door, the salesman would lift his hat polite and take a small step backwards.
Backwards, why?
Deference, respect. It lowered her guard, her instinct to protect her space. So almost automatically, she'd open the door wider. It invited him in, psychologically.
So the walking stick and the backward step became standard issue because they literally opened doors.
Wow. It really shows how the messenger's image can be more persuasive than the message itself.
Absolutely. And you can build that atmosphere of, say, class just through association. Think about department stores like Marshall Field & Co. or high-end hat shops.
What do they do?
They'd use prime display space, really valuable real estate, for something insanely expensive that almost never sold. Like a $7,500 Hudson sable coat.
$7,000 back then. Yeah. They weren't expecting to sell many, maybe one a year, if that. The point wasn't the sale. It was creating an aura of quality for the whole store.
Ah, I see. So the thinking is, if they carry that level of quality,
Yeah.
then the less expensive stuff you actually came to buy must also be pretty good, proportionally. It's like a halo effect, creating perceived value through association.
Okay, so atmosphere is powerful, maybe even manipulative. But what about the actual product? Does it have to be any good?
Oh, definitely. That brings us right back to sincerity, authenticity. It's a fundamental rule. The product must be worthy of what you say about it.
Because?
Because they figured out early on you might fool someone once, but you won't get repeat business. Advertising a bad product, the book says, is like inflating a punctured tire.
Huh. Good analogy. It won't hold air, no repeat sales.
Exactly. The quality leak kills it.
Speaking of things that can deflate an ad, let's talk about being clever. The sources warn about this, right? Being too clever. Yeah, it's a real trap. You see this brilliant, witty ad, maybe for cigarettes or something. You remember the joke, the cleverness.
But you have no idea which brand it was for.
Precisely. The ad caught your eye, but it didn't connect to the product in your mind. It missed your pocketbook, as Durstine puts it.
But cleverness isn't always bad.
No, not if it's baked into the product itself. Think of those early effective slogans. If it isn't an Eastman, it isn't a Kodak, or never say die, say writ.
Okay, yeah. They're catchy, but you literally can't separate the slogan from the brand name.
Right. The cleverness serves the product. It doesn't overshadow it.
Another pitfall mentioned is dialogue in ads.
Yes. Especially that stiff, unnatural dialogue. You know the kind. Yes, Edith, like you, for years I failed to see the advantages of the household helper. Nobody talks like that.
It sounds so fake.
Yeah.
And that leads to what the author calls purple prose. Right?
Yeah.
Overly fancy writing.
Exactly. And here we get that famous, ruthless advice from Sir Arthur Quiller Catch again. Whenever you feel an impulse to perpetrate a piece of exceptionally fine writing, obey it wholeheartedly and delete it before sending your manuscript to press. Murder your darlings.
Wow. Murder your darlings. That's harsh.
But essential. It means clarity and persuasion beat showing off your vocabulary every single time. The goal is effortless understanding for the reader, not admiring your fancy words.
Okay, but if you're trying to persuade, why not use the most elegant language possible? Doesn't that sound more convincing?
Only if it fits the product's personality. Word choice is crucial for setting the stage, creating that atmosphere we talked about. The language itself paints a picture.
Did you give an example?
Sure. Think about an invitation from an exclusive jeweler. They might say, "Your inspection is invited." Very formal, dignified.
Right.
Now contrast that with a garage keeper. He'd probably say, "Come in and look us over." Friendly, informal.
Completely different vibe.
Totally. Both are invitations, but the words instantly create different mental images, different expectations. You couldn't swap them. The language has to match the experience being offered.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, zooming out a bit. By 1920, it was becoming clear advertising wasn't just about selling soap or pickles.
No, it was seen as a real social force, something that could actually change how people think, break down old prejudices, maybe even sell big ideas, not just products.
And to do that effectively, it needed to be timely, right? Genuinely timely, not just that predictable almanac copy.
Exactly. Almanac copy is, putting cupids on ads in February or turkeys in November. It's expected, kind of lazy filler.
So what's genuine timeliness?
It's grabbing onto a major current event and connecting your product to it, forcing people to pay attention. The book gives us an amazing example involving Saucony gasoline.
What happened?
Remember the British dirigible, the R-34? It made this big transatlantic flight. Well, the very morning the news broke that it had arrived safely back in England.
Yeah.
So Saucony ran a full-page ad in the New York papers. It showed the airship and basically said, yep, its tanks were filled with Saucony aviation gasoline for the trip home.
Wow. Talk about fast work. They tied their product's reliability directly to this huge current event. Instant relevance.
That's not just seasonal marketing. That's seizing the moment. That kind of power was also being tried out by big companies for what we'd call PR or institutional advertising, trying to shape public opinion.
Did that work well?
Often not, actually. The book notes campaigns frequently failed because companies waited too long until they were already in trouble. Then they sounded defensive or apologetic or just self-serving.
But there was an exception.
A big one. AT&T, the American Telephone and Telegraph Company. Years before, they started this long, steady campaign, just telling the public about the telephone system, how it worked, the challenges, being proactive.
Okay, just educating people.
Yeah, and that built up this huge reservoir of public goodwill and patience. So later, if there was an emergency like a big transit strike jamming up the phone lines, AT&T could just put out a notice explaining the situation, asking people not to make unnecessary calls.
And people would actually listen.
Yeah, because they'd built trust over years. That goodwill helped them manage crises without massive public backlash. They invested in trust before they needed it.
That capacity to shift public thinking, it really does suggest broader uses. The source even talks about needing campaigns to sell important public ideas.
Right, like promoting reading books or teaching basic economics in a way everyone could understand. The idea that advertising is maybe the best tool we have to give one person the other fellow's viewpoint.
Okay, so let's try to wrap this up. If we distill it down for you, the listener, what are the core takeaways from mastering advertising, even based on these century-old insights?
Well, it seems like there are 4 big things. First, that unity of vision, seeing the whole ad as one piece. Second, understanding human psychology, especially for creating atmosphere. Third, ruthless honesty, both about the product's real worth and, in your writing, murdering those darlings.
And fourth.
And fourth, choosing exactly the right language to match the product's character and the audience.
And underpinning all of that is something really simple but easy to forget. Don't lose touch with the audience. There's that final anecdote about the ad man hired to write about banking.
Oh, right. He felt like he needed to become a banking expert, read all the technical manuals.
He wanted to become an insider.
Yeah. And the banker, a VP, basically told him, stop. If you do that, you'll be just like us. Ask us anything you want, but don't get lost in the jargon.
The key was, keep on thinking like a depositor, not like a vice president.
Exactly. The moment you start thinking like an insider, you forget the simple questions and concerns the actual customer has. You lose that crucial outside perspective.
You trade clarity for technical knowledge, essentially.
Which is fatal for persuasion. Complexity kills communication. Always has, always will.
Okay, so that brings us to a final thought, kind of a provocative one from the source material itself.
Yeah, it suggests that when banks finally started advertising, just inviting regular people in and explaining their services without sounding stuffy, it actually struck the hardest blow in history against those old get-rich-quick schemes.
Just by being transparent and accessible.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
Simply communicating openly about legitimate banking offered people protection from scams. So the question for you to think about is this. If that kind of simple, clear communication about banking had such a protective effect back then, what area of essential knowledge in your life today, maybe it's health information, maybe it's climate science, maybe understanding local government, could be made safer, clearer, and more successful if we applied these same principles of intentional, well-crafted, and fundamentally sincere communication?